never been a time when the Ten Commandments was not controversial. Outside of the movie The Ten Commandments, which I absolutely adore, and the few times that the Ten Commandments is mentioned in church, the actual Ten Commandments has been a source of tension and conflict in our culture. There has been an ongoing pitched battle over the desire by some to display the Ten Commandments at courthouses, state capitals, public school buildings, and municipal city buildings. And since 1980, there have been eight major court cases, including 2 at the U.S. Supreme Court, arguing about the public display of the Ten Commandments. Now, you would think in all this debate and fight over the Ten Commandments that someone would have the presence of mind to start telling us what they are and why we have them. And I want you to go and search your memories, and I want you to look at those news articles and those news casts and tell me if, in the debate over the Ten Commandments, anyone had the presence of mind to stop and really talk about what it is they're fighting over. I have never heard in the debate and the cases addressing the Ten Commandments a conversation or an effort to educate us about what the Ten Commandments actually are about. I have never heard anybody talk about how the Ten Commandments can positively impact the community or actually call us to be community. And so unfortunately, the Ten Commandments have become an icon and a symbol of a particular religious expression. Those who support the public display of the Ten Commandments argue that the commandments have religious and historical value, and displaying them is a matter of free speech. Those who oppose the public display of the Ten Commandments are worried about a violation of the principle of separation of church and state and the potential establishment by the government of a religion. Notice again that there is little or no discussion about the biblical or theological place of the Ten Commandments. There is no exploration or wrestling with the commandments as something given by God and what it means for God to give us something like this. It appears that we can't get past the politicization, or as one theologian says, the commodification of the sacred, to talk about Ten Commandments as a part of faith. And so I just want to say up front what I think we've missed because we haven't had that conversation. What we've missed in all of the debates, what we've missed in turning the Ten Commandments into a campaign in the nation's culture and religious wars, what we have missed about the Ten Commandments is this. The Ten Commandments is a gift of love from God, shared with the people of God, to show them how to be in relationship with God and with each other. I'm going to say it again. The Ten Commandments. Now, if you don't hear anything else from me today, this is what I want you to walk away from. You can say the pastor talked a lot of junk, but this one is the one thing that he got right. The Ten Commandments is a gift of God, shared with the people of God, to show them how to be in relationship with God and with each other. Now, we have to ask ourselves this question: how could a gift from God, shared with the people of God, to show them how to be in relationship with God and each other, become a controversy? How can a gift from God, who is love, be a source of controversy and a source of division, a source of all of fighting? Well, let's go back. Let's go back and figure out what they actually are instead of wallowing in our conventional wisdom and our cultural wars about it. 3 months after the Exodus, 3 months after their exodus from slavery and bondage in Egypt, Israel encamps in the wilderness at the foot of Mount Sinai. God has kept God's promise. Look at God, always just keeping promises. Look, God, that's a promise keeper. God keeps God's promise. And made Moses, the promise he made to Moses from that very first time they met. God keeps the promise to free Israel from bondage. God reminds Moses that Israel has seen God's handiwork. God broke the might of the Egyptian system of bondage and slavery, of oppression and domination, a system of control and violence. God protected Israel like a mighty eagle protecting her young, lifting them up and putting them on a firm ground. And now, God is about to make good on God's other promise. What's that other promise? I will bring Israel unto myself. So here, right now, this is the moment in the wilderness, at the foot of a mountain. God is about to keep another promise to bring this people to God's own self. This is the moment when the people will finally meet God, finally meet the one who did what was thought to be impossible, free them from slavery. And they are about to meet God. They're about to experience what salvation truly is. God and Israel will enter into a covenant like a marriage. They're about to be bound together. And this covenant is all about listening to what God wants them to do. Obey the commandments God will give them, and they will become God's treasured possession. A kingdom of priests, a holy nation. So right now, remember what I said about the 10 Commandments being the source of a controversy? The 10 Commandments is about to be given to a people so they can become God's treasured possession. A kingdom of priests, a holy nation. They are about to go into, by the way, if you want to know the history, this is right before they're about to go into the promised land. So even before they get the promise, this is another promise God is going to give them. Before they even get there, God is going to show them what it would mean to be, how they're going to be a treasured possession, how they're going to be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Remember, what is the 10 Commandments for? These people now are about to hear what it means to be. And I want you to think about this. Think about this. When they were in Egypt, they were slaves, the property of Pharaoh, a broken and disconnected community, not a people to be respected or emulated. Their lives, their humanity were distorted by soul-crushing toil, hate, and violence. And now they are free. They are on the cusp of a new way of being. And they have a choice to make. God stands before them and says, I want to be in relationship with you. I want to make a covenant with you. And is promising them a new identity. Israel can accept it, or she can reject it. And all she has to do is obey these commandments. That's all she has to do. So God is gifting them the means by which they can be a new people, have a new identity. And in this relationship with God, they are no longer property. They are no longer slaves. They are no longer in bondage. They are no longer beat down, broken down, tore up by an empire. They are God's treasured possession. I asked today, has anybody called you a treasured possession before? And here God is making the offer to be a treasured possession, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. And so how do God's treasured possession, how do a kingdom of priests and a holy nation live in the world? How do they do it? The 10 Commandments are all about the ways that they obligate themselves to God and to their neighbors. So the commandments God will give Israel set out what they must actually do to honor the covenant and to live into this new identity. And of particular concern to God is the welfare and life, actual welfare, life of the people. So the commandments are all about what it takes to be in right relationship with God and right relationship with neighbors. When they are trying to fight over the 10 Commandments, when have you heard them say that it is a gift given to us so that we can be in right relationship with God and right relationship with each other? You will, Pastor, how is that so? All right, before we even get to the first 4 commandments, the first 4 commandments are all about how not to offend God. If you want to be in relationship with God, here's how not to offend. Wouldn't it be great when we start dating, we say, here's how not to get on my bad side. Here's how not to offend. This is how you can hang out with God. That's the first 4. That's all it's about, 4. How not to offend God. Then the next 6. The next 6 are all about how not to harm your neighbor. In all the debates over the 10 Commandments, did we ever hear that this is me telling you how not to harm your neighbor, how to be a community? The next 6 says, this is what we must do so that we do not hurt each other. So the community can actually be community. So instead of using those 10 commandments to bring us together, to show us how to be in right relationship with God and right relationship with each other, we use them to say, you're not included, you're not accepted, you're not this, you're not that. Oh, what have we done with God's gift? What have we done with God's gift? Where is the proclamation about the promise of being God's treasured possession? Where's this beauty of being a kingdom of priests and a holy nation if we abide by these commandments? Where is the invitation to consider how to live in such a way that we don't offend God and that we don't harm our neighbor? Where is the reminder that God's laws are a gift to show us how to be in relationship? Oh, the 10 Commandments are not just rules. That's what they keep telling us. I thought they were just rules. I thought they were just rules. Rules for the rules' sake. And then I thought they were just an icon, was something you place in a frame on your desk or on your wall, a monument on the lawn. But I'm telling you now, they are not to be used simply as an icon to identify the United States as a Christian nation. They are not to be used as pawns to indicate success in the culture and religious wars. The 10 Commandments should be the means by which we reflect on our obligations to God and on each other. And you want to say, how do you know they're not just rules? Here's another thing you didn't notice. There are no punishments mentioned if you don't abide by them. You notice that? When we go through the 10 Commandments, there is no, if you don't follow the 10 Commandments, we're going to put you to death. It doesn't say, if you don't follow the 10 Commandments, we got to put you in jail. Some religions and some cultures think that's what it's supposed to be. But the 10 Commandments do not prescribe punishment. Why not? Because the punishment is obvious. If you do not obligate yourself to God, if you do not obligate yourself to your neighbor, if you offend God, and if you steal, kill, or bear false witness on your neighbor, you have already disconnected yourself from God. That's punishment enough. If you steal, kill, and bear false witness on your neighbor, you've already broken community. And if we are in a broken community, which we can look out every day, we are really a sad sack of people. The 10 Commandments orient us to a way of life, the violation of which is disconnection from God and broken community. broken community. And that's why it's important what people do and say in our name. That's why it's important that we do not separate families at the southern border. That is why it is harmful to call our Muslim siblings out of their names and call every one of them terrorists or sinners or devils. That is a harm to the community. It's a violation of our covenant with God and with neighbor. That's why we should not reject God's LGBTQ people. It disconnects us from God and it breaks the community. That is why all of our hearts should bleed when unarmed black men are shot and killed, and because justice has not been done. And that is a disconnection from God and a breaking up of our communities. Our 10 Commandments is a gift. A gift to remind us who and whose we are. Oh, see, we are not in the actual wilderness at the base of a mountain. And our lives and our society is far more advanced and complex than that Exodus generation. But the 10 Commandments and what they are and what they mean should be foundational to our witness and our journey as a people of God. Not because they are rules that control us, because they offer us a means by which we can be community. We throw that word around a lot. I throw it around a lot, but it really does mean something to be community. And these commandments should remind us that we have a responsibility to God and to each other. Oh, the old saying is that I am my brother's keeper, I am my sister's keeper. We say that but it means something to obligate ourselves to the other. These commandments should prompt us always to be mindful that what we do in this world has the potential to offend God. What we do, not who we are. That's what we get wrong all the time. If I just say that I'm a Christian, and then you can go and do whatever you want to do. Oh, I'm someone who loves God, and then you hate your neighbor. It doesn't compute. It is what we do. That's what the 10 Commandments wants us to understand. What we do has the potential to offend God and has the potential to break up the community. And so these commandments should remain the means by which we let God's purposes for creation be realized in our midst. Being faithful to God, being faithful to our neighbors. And then when we do it all, when we live into this identity, when we honor God in this way, we cannot help but be something that I think you rarely hear, that we rarely hear said of us. And I want you to hear it right now from me. I want you to internalize it. I want you to walk away knowing it. I want you to keep it in your head every time you walk through this world. We are a treasured possession of God. A treasured possession of God. Don't get it mixed up. You don't become a treasure of God and then do good. You are a treasure of God and you are good. And you obligate yourself to God and to each other. May it be so. Amen.